Hi, this is David Smith from Australian Videocamera, and today I've been exploring the Blackmagic Design Ursa Mini Pro 12K camera. You can see the 12K beautifully emblazoned on the side here. A remarkable camera, and I wanted to just explore some of its features with you. It's a heavy camera. It weighs in with this lens at about 6.6 kilograms. So I'll switch it on at the power switch here. So the LCD lights up, and you've got your audio levels here and various other settings, including the frame rate and the memory status, and you've got time code across here. Now for this exercise I'm going to be recording using a little Samsung T7 SSD, very fast and should be suitable for this. So that just plugs into the back here. It plugs into this super speed USB, a very high speed port designed to handle these very high data rates. And if I open the door here, you can see a number of features. Here's the audio selection buttons, and you've got phantom power on and off for each of the two channels. You've got playback controls down here. At the top here you have a USB-C port, which is not the super high speed one, but it's suitable for upgrading the software in the camera. And here you've got 4 memory card ports, 2 CF cards and 2 for high speed SD cards. And that's very important. As I say, for today I'm going to be recording on an SSD through the high speed port at the rear. A great big V-lock battery on the back here, and then I turn it round and you can see the screen here, very clear LCD screen, which has got a series of menus. Each menu's got a series of little buttons at the bottom, and you can step through the pages very easily to get to the one you want. So down in this open window here is the menu button, which you press there, and this brings up the main menu. So it's set at the moment on 12K. You've got a choice of 12K, 8K, 6K or 4K. And for each of those settings, you've got a series of compressions that you can change. You can choose, in this case with 12K, you can have, if you're working as this one's set up to do, with constant bit rate, you've got a choice of 5:1, 8:1, 12:1 or 18:1 compression. And the difference is that this is obviously the highest quality, will give you the sharpest pictures, the best resolution from the superb Super 35 sensor inside the camera, but it can also put a huge strain on your resources and your editing computer unless it's really up to high spec standards. And so you can actually get away with going right down to 12 or 18:1 compression, and because of the power of the Super 35 sensor, you'll get extremely good pictures at much lower data rates that are much easier to handle. But I'll put it back up here to 5:1. Now this is in constant bit rate. I can change it over to constant quality, which means you've got a choice of quality levels ranging from Q0 down to Q5. Q0's the highest. Now these are variable bit rates, so that in fact in the Q0 position, for example, the highest quality setting, you can actually run up to very high data rates, 1,000 megabits per second. And you can very easily overload. Even an SSD card like this one can be overloaded because it's just really pushing the limits of that card. If I had high-speed CF cards inside, I could easily run this thing on Q0 and would get very large files, but extremely high quality from the Super 35 sensor. All of the menus are very straightforward. They're very clear and easy to use on this beautiful touch screen. So the actual setup is extremely logical and extremely easy to do. Outside you've got more controls. We've got a series of controls here, which are for the servo-controlled lenses. This lens isn't a servo-controlled lens. It's a manual lens, or one that can be controlled by external servos through the gear wheels on the side. I'll talk about that in a minute. We've got various other controls here. We've got ISO and gain, shutter speed, or shutter angle. You can choose whether you want shutter angle or shutter speed, and white balance here. And then you've got a couple of customisable F1 and F2 buttons, and the record button down the bottom here. The viewfinder is excellent, very, very sharp, and has a whole range of modifications. You can choose all sorts of settings through the little buttons on the top here. These let you adjust your settings on the lens. There's two little wheels underneath that let you adjust the tension on this, and so this can go up and down to the angle that suits you. There's a calibration ring around here which is set very minutely in beautiful calibration markings to get it correct for your own eyes. And then there's a second lock nut under here which lets you slide the whole viewfinder in and out. And then again, the whole thing can be tightened up so it doesn't just drop out. And then it can be moved forwards by just moving this thing forwards. There are little graduations on here which let you choose the actual position that you want. You can choose it by numbers. Very easily set it up for future use. The carrying handle in this case has 3 1/4" 20 sockets, and there's another big one under here for other purposes, such as attaching a large monitor. And then if we turn the camera round, you can see there's the handle here on the side, which has buttons for, again, for servo-controlled lenses. You can adjust the aperture and various other things with these 2 buttons. And there's a record button here, of course. And on the back of the camera, we have SDI out, SDI in, and time code in for recording from external sources, and a 12-volt power supply here. On top of the camera, in a nice little weatherproof seal, is a pair of XLR connectors, and they of course provide phantom power if you want to. They lock down. That's a nicely protected thing. Bear in mind, of course, that there's heating vents. The exhaust vents from the cooling system are here on both sides of the main handle. It's weatherproof, so you can't do much damage to that, but you'd be careful not to get water into it for obvious reasons. Around the other side, of course, I meant to mention that there's the connectors here for the lens control, and these connect the viewfinder. So that's the camera. The next bit, of course, to talk about is the lens. And this particular lens is the DZOFilm lens, the Pictor lens. It's a 20 to 55mm lens. It's a very, very well-made lens, all metal fabrication. It has these gear wheels on each of the focus, zoom, and aperture rings. So you can actually attach servo units to the outside here and do pull focuses and whatever you need to do extremely accurately. The numbering on here is, as you can see, very, very clear. Bright yellow lettering, a good size on a black background, so you can very easily read that. On the right-hand side, the focus is in meters down here, so we're going up to, say, 2 meters, up to infinity. And if you turn it round, on the other side, it's in feet, and you can read off here in feet from, say, 20 to infinity that way. The lens is very importantly a parfocal lens, and it really is parfocal, which simply means that as you adjust the zoom, it stays in focus right throughout the zoom range. And I tested this, and it is true. So as I adjust the focus on this test chart, you'll see the red peaking indicator light up as I find focus. And then as I zoom out, you can clearly see that focus is retained. The red peaks are clearly visible at both ends of the zoom range. Clear proof that this relatively inexpensive lens is truly parfocal. You may have to do adjustments if you change to an EF lens with the EF converter that's supplied in the kit. You may have to adjust some shims to get the back focus exactly right, but that's an easy process. It doesn't take very long to do, and it stays there once you've made the adjustment. The lens has a 16 blade iris, which the manufacturers say produces a dramatic bokeh effect. I love that word, dramatic. If you're into bokeh in a big way, which I'm not particularly, that would be a good thing, I suppose. So here's the lens from DZO. supplied to us by the people at Video Guys, very kindly, in Melbourne. And the good thing about this lens is that although it's parfocal, which is quite remarkable for its price, the price is just around 4,500 Australian dollars. And it really should be a lens that costs about 2 to 3 times that, given the quality of the image and the professional construction that we see in this lens. It's a beautiful piece. And it's a really great lens for someone really getting into cine lenses for the first time, who doesn't want to spend, well, you can spend $20,000, $30,000 on a single lens if you want to buy one of the German brands or a Swiss one. But for an entry level that is actually very, very suitable for professional use, this is a beauty. I've done a lot of tests. I've used test charts and things, and I'll explore those with you in a moment. But that's the basic idea of the lens. It's a fantastic camera. What I found was that using it in constant bit rate at the highest quality, that is 5:1 compression, it was running into strife with the SSD card. It just couldn't quite hack it for more than about 45 to 50 seconds of recording. It would start to drop out. If I scaled down to 12 or 18:1 compression, that problem disappeared. And even with this SSD card through the external port, it recorded perfectly. So this is a really beautiful camera. It's an extraordinary camera when you think about the comparison between this and an IMAX film camera, which I worked with. I didn't use it, but I was working in a team that was making an IMAX film about 20 years ago. And the problems with that camera were manifold. The camera itself weighed 120 kilograms. It had a single roll of film that lasted approximately 5 minutes of useful shots, because this camera had to come up to speed, the film had to come up to speed to go through horizontally through the gate and then slow down at the end of your take. And so every time you buttoned on and buttoned off, you'd have several seconds, many seconds, 5-6 seconds of acceleration and deceleration time of the film, which meant you got no more than 5 minutes out of each cassette. And this is really tricky if you're in the bush trying to film wildlife with a large, noisy camera. Looking at this by comparison with its 12K resolution, this camera can film for effectively forever, because you simply can keep hot swapping the CF cards or the SD cards as they run out and just keep going. So you could effectively film, if you had enough CF cards, you could keep going for a very long time. Whereas you only had 5 minutes per shot with the IMAX film camera. And this will produce genuine IMAX quality cinema. So it's a remarkable piece of equipment. The IMAX camera was not, you couldn't buy the camera, you had to rent it, and it was about something like $15,000 a week to rent the camera. This camera costs $10,000 for the body, and with these accessories and lens and so on, it comes up to around $25,000 as it's here sitting on my lap. So a wonderful camera. It's suitable for everything from documentaries, corporate videos, working probably at the lower end of the resolution range. You can go right back down to 6K or 4K. 4K is still incredibly high resolution images, especially with this particular sensor. Or if you're really pushing it to make an IMAX film or some other extremely detailed film, you've got the option of going up to the full 12K, which opens up so many possibilities. For example, just by reframing shots, you can effectively have what appear to be several different cameras from the one set of frames. So there's just all sorts of possibilities, and it's at a remarkable price. Typical Blackmagic design, remarkable price and remarkable quality. So, Blackmagic design, Ursa Mini Pro 12K. I love it.